I drove into Chicago just after 17:30 on a warm Friday in mid-August. The late summer light hung low over the skyline, turning every glass tower gold. Traffic moved slow along Lakeshore Drive, horns blending with the hum of air conditioners and the faint rhythm of the city winding down for the weekend. My daughter, Emily, lived near Lincoln Park, on a quiet side street lined with old oaks and brick apartments that still smelled faintly of history. She'd moved there after the divorce 6 months earlier. Her mother, Karen, called it a clean start. Karen had a way of using tidy phrases to cover untidy truths. I'm 56, old enough to know that silence doesn't mean peace. It usually means somebody's hiding something. Before I reached Emily's building, I stopped at a small flower shop near Clark and Fullerton. The owner, an older woman with soil under her fingernails, asked if it was for an apology or a visit. Just a visit, I said. She handed me a short bouquet of sunflowers. Bright, simple, nothing extravagant. They stand up straight, no matter the weather, she said. That sounded right for my daughter. Emily opened the door before I could knock twice. Her face lit up when she saw the flowers. Dad, you didn't have to. I know, I said, handing them over. But every home needs something alive in it. She smiled, small, tired, but real. Inside, her apartment was spotless. The kind of order people keep when they're trying to hold themselves together. Candles burning, soft music playing, one framed photo of the two of us fishing years ago. We cooked dinner together, pasta, her favorite. I poured the wine this time, making sure her glass stayed mostly full even though she barely drank. We talked about work, about the weather, about everything except David. When I finally asked, her voice went flat. Let's not talk about him. The night turned quiet after that. Outside, the streetlights glowed through her thin curtains. Around 21:45, she said it like she was trying to set down a heavy box. He stopped calling after the restraining order. I looked up. Restraining order? Against who? Against him, she said quickly, her tone rehearsed but shaky. It's done, Dad. It's better this way. She forced a smile and stood to clear the dishes. I didn't press. When I left around 22:30, the air outside had cooled, carrying that faint lake breeze that smells like metal and rain. She hugged me on the sidewalk. Thanks for the flowers, she said. You're welcome, kiddo. Keep them near the window. They like the light. I watched her close the door, then drove back toward Springfield. 3 hours of open highway and too many thoughts. At 1:10, I pulled into our driveway. The house was dark except for the den. Karen was still awake, scrolling through her tablet. You made good time, she said without looking up. Yeah. How's Emily? Not great. You didn't tell me about the restraining order. Her expression didn't change. It's handled, Thomas. Don't dig into it. That was her tell, calling me Thomas instead of Tom. I watched her for a moment, but she kept her eyes on the screen, as if the conversation had already ended. Upstairs, the bedroom felt colder than it should have in August. I lay there listening to the air conditioner hum, thinking about Emily's shaky hands and Karen's perfect calm. Something was off, not just with my daughter's marriage, but with the story my wife was trying to sell me. And as I stared into the dark, one quiet certainty settled in my chest. Karen knew more than she was willing to say. By Sunday morning, I'd already replayed every detail of that dinner in my mind a dozen times. The tremor in Emily's hand, her tone when she said, restraining order, the way she looked past me when I mentioned David's name. People don't look away from truth. They look away from guilt, fear, or both. That afternoon, I was in my workshop behind the house, tightening bolts on the old mower when Karen came out with coffee. She stood in the doorway like a woman inspecting a scene before deciding how much of it she wanted to join. So, she said, how bad is she? She's not bad, I said. Just quiet. Thinner. Nervous. Karen sipped her coffee. Breakups do that. Breakups don't usually end with restraining orders. She set the cup down. Emily doesn't need you interrogating her life. She needs space. You're not helping her by second-guessing everything. Her voice was steady, too steady. The kind of tone people use when they've rehearsed their lines. I nodded slowly. And what exactly did David do to earn a restraining order? Karen's eyes flicked to mine, then away. You don't want the details, trust me. That was the first crack. Karen had never once told me not to ask for details. For 30 years, she'd thrived on knowing everything about everyone. Now she wanted silence. By Tuesday, Curiosity had replaced sleep. I pulled up David's name on public court records. Nothing. No arrests, no restraining orders filed in Cook County. The only legal filing under his name was the divorce itself. That's when suspicion turned into certainty. The story I'd been fed was wrong. That evening, I called Emily. She answered after 4 rings, voice soft, distracted. "Hi, Dad." "Hey, kiddo. Just checking in. How's work?" "It's fine. Busy week. I'm presenting Monday." "Good. You sound tired." A small pause. "I'm fine, Dad. Really." There it was again, the practiced reassurance. Same tone her mother used when she didn't want questions. Before hanging up, I said quietly, "You know I love you, right?" "I know." She said it like she didn't quite believe it. Later that night, I was sitting in the den when Karen came downstairs in her robe, scrolling her phone. "What are you doing up?" she asked. "Checking some court records," I said. She froze for half a breath. "Why?" I wanted to see if David had any history, anything that might have scared Emily. Her expression changed just slightly, annoyance wrapped in fear. "You're not a detective, Thomas. Stay out of it." "Karen," I said slowly, "why does it sound like you're protecting him?" "I'm protecting our daughter," she snapped. "She doesn't need this dragged up again." "Dragged up," I repeated. "You mean truth." She turned and walked upstairs without answering. The house felt colder after she left. The kind of cold that doesn't come from air conditioning, but from distance that's been growing too long. I sat there in the quiet, watching her half-empty coffee cup on the table, the lipstick marks still fresh. I realized then that I didn't trust her anymore. The next morning, I called an old friend, Frank Morales, a retired Chicago police sergeant I'd met through a security consulting job years ago. "Frank," I said, "I need a favor." Quietly. He sighed. "This about family?" "Yeah. Those are the worst kind." "I know. Just see if you can pull anything on a guy named David Rains, early 30s, engineer, Chicago resident. I'm told he's got a restraining order. I can't find it anywhere." Frank promised to check. 2 days later, he called back. "Tom, there's no restraining order. None filed, none pending, not even a complaint. Guy's clean. But what? He filed one 6 months ago. Against your daughter." I didn't say a word. Just stared at the workbench in front of me until the grain of the wood blurred. "Tom," Frank said softly, "whatever happened between them, it wasn't what you were told." When we hung up, I sat there in silence, the afternoon sun cutting through the blinds like thin blades. Karen had lied. Not once. Not vaguely. Flat out lied. And for the first time in my marriage, I wasn't sure which betrayal hurt worse, her silence, or the fact that she'd done it so easily. I didn't sleep much that night. The house was too still, the kind of silence that makes your thoughts echo. By sunrise, I had already decided what I was going to do. I wasn't going to ask Karen for explanations anymore. I was going to verify everything myself. I drove to work, but my mind never left Chicago. Between client calls, I searched online, news mentions, company sites, social media. David Rains had gone quiet. His LinkedIn still listed him as a senior engineer for an architecture firm near the Loop, but he hadn't posted since January. No photos, no updates, no trace of a man rebuilding his life. People disappear like that when they've been hurt, or when they've been humiliated. At 1310, I dialed his old number. It rang 4 times, then voicemail. "You've reached David. Leave a message." I hung up. Tried again. This time he answered. "Mr. Holloway?" His voice was cautious, lower than I remembered. "Yes," I said. "It's Tom, Emily's father." A long pause. I didn't expect this call. "I'm not calling to argue. I just want to understand what happened." He sighed. "You really don't know, do you?" "Apparently not." There was another silence, the kind that measures trust. Finally, he said, "Your daughter's not the enemy here, Mr. Holloway. But your wife, she changed everything." I felt my grip tighten on the phone. "Karen?" "She visited me 3 times after Emily and I started marriage counseling. Said she was worried about her daughter being trapped in a loveless marriage. She told me Emily was seeing someone at work, that she planned to leave me but wanted to look innocent. She said if I loved her, I should be the one to end it." My stomach turned. "She said that to you directly?" "Yes. In your own living room once, when Emily was upstairs packing for a trip. I thought it was strange, but she spoke like a mother trying to spare her child embarrassment. 2 weeks later, Emily found messages on my phone from her mother, ones I never sent. Screenshots of conversations I didn't have. He paused. And that's when she filed for divorce. Did you ever confront Karen? He let out a bitter laugh. You think she takes calls from me now? The day after the papers came, she called my employer. Said I'd been harassing her daughter, violating a restraining order. They put me on leave until it was resolved. I stared at the wall. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from disbelief. Why didn't you fight back? I asked. I tried. But she's smart, your wife. Knew exactly which strings to pull. Every time I tried to defend myself, Emily thought I was manipulating her. Karen even showed her emails she'd found that made me look like a jealous control freak. By the time I realized what was happening, it was over. He hesitated before adding, Mr. Holloway, I never hurt your daughter. I loved her, but your wife made sure she'd never believe that. When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, listening to the quiet click of the wall clock. At 1900 hours, I poured myself a drink I didn't taste. Karen came in from the garden, wiping her hands. You're quiet tonight, she said. Just tired, I replied. It was a lie, and for the first time in 31 years, I didn't care if she knew it. After she went upstairs, I pulled out my old laptop, the one she never used. I searched the house Wi-Fi logs, an old habit from my days running corporate audits. Karen's laptop had connected to the same Chicago IP address as David's firm 7 times last winter. Every date matched the weeks before Emily filed for divorce. I sat back in my chair. The puzzle pieces weren't just fitting, they were locking into place. Karen hadn't just interfered. She'd engineered the whole collapse. And I decided, quietly and without hesitation, that I was going to prove it. By Thursday, I had a plan, quiet, simple, and completely invisible to Karen. 31 years of marriage had taught me her habits. Morning coffee on the porch, 2 hours on her laptop after lunch, a nightly scroll through social media before bed. She never noticed who might be watching her. I started with the home router. It kept a full log of every device that connected through our Wi-Fi. Her laptop's ID stood out like a beacon, steady logins to David Rains's company domain long after the divorce was finalized. When I matched timestamps, I found something worse. One connection that lined up exactly with the night Emily told me about the restraining order. That meant Karen was online with David's employer the same night she told our daughter he'd been violent. I sat there staring at the monitor until the numbers blurred. Friday morning, I called Frank Morales again. Frank, you still have contacts at that architecture firm? 2. You want me to ask around? Quietly. By noon, he called back. Tom, one of their HR people remembers your wife. She met with them last March, said she was consulting for a family legal matter. Warned them that one of their engineers, David Rains, might be under investigation for domestic harassment. She even left a copy of a court document. I closed my eyes. Let me guess, restraining order? Stamped and signed. Only problem? The judge listed on it retired in 2019. A forged document. My wife had gone that far. That night, I sat across from her at dinner, watching her cut her chicken in neat, perfect pieces. You talked to Emily lately? I asked. Yesterday, she said. She's doing better. Started therapy. Good. Silence. Then, softly, she said she doesn't miss him at all. I watched her say it, her voice smooth and controlled, like someone satisfied with the outcome. That was the moment I knew she felt no guilt. After dinner, when she went upstairs, I checked her desk drawer. Karen kept things organized, folders, envelopes, perfectly labeled. Tucked beneath utility bills was a white USB drive marked personal. I plugged it into my laptop. Inside were PDFs, emails, screenshots, even transcripts. But the names on half the messages were fake. She'd edited subject lines, altered timestamps, changed phrases to make David sound threatening. It wasn't sloppy work, it was calculated, layered. A professional con. Among the files was one labeled Draft for Emily. It was a letter written as if from me. Emily, your father and I have talked, and we both agree David's behavior is unstable. I think you should protect yourself legally. Love, Dad. My hands went cold. She'd been planning to send this from my name. I could almost see her thinking it through. How a forged letter from me would tilt the final balance. Convince Emily her father saw David as dangerous. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark. Betrayal isn't loud. It's quiet, careful, almost tender in its precision. At 23:20, I forwarded every file to a secure cloud folder, one Karen couldn't reach. Then I printed 2 pages, the fake restraining order and that letter draft, and slid them into my briefcase. By midnight, I'd made a decision. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make sure Emily saw exactly what kind of truth her mother had built her life on. Saturday morning felt unnaturally calm. The sky was clear, the air warm enough to pass for late June. Karen hummed in the kitchen, making breakfast as if we were any normal couple with nothing to hide between them. I poured coffee and studied her. She'd always been good at pretending, an actress of ordinary life. Emily called, she said casually. She might come down next weekend. That's good, I said. You should take her fishing. She could use something familiar. The irony almost made me laugh. She had no idea how familiar the water would get before this was over. After breakfast, I told her I needed to run errands. I drove to my office instead, locked the door, drew the blinds, and began cataloging every file I'd copied from that USB drive. Each forged document had a pattern. Karen used the same template, same formatting, even the same typo in her date stamps. It was enough to prove authorship, but not enough to expose motive. For that, I needed to show how she'd used those forgeries to manipulate Emily directly. I printed the forged restraining order and called Frank again. Frank, you still have that contact at the Cook County Clerk's office? Yeah. Want something checked? Need confirmation this document was never filed. Official letterhead, certified. He whistled softly. You planning a war? No, I said. I'm planning justice. By Monday afternoon, Frank delivered exactly what I asked for. A signed affidavit confirming the document was counterfeit. The same day, I received an email from David. Subject line, you were right. Attached were screenshots, texts from Karen to him months earlier, pressuring him to end things for Emily's sake. In one, she threatened to make the law see you for what you are if he didn't walk away quietly. That message was dated 3 days before the supposed restraining order was filed. I stared at the evidence until my coffee went cold. She'd orchestrated everything, fabricated threats, poisoned trust, and used legal intimidation to finish the job. That night, when Karen fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and went to my study. On the desk sat an old leather notebook where I kept personal records, dates, receipts, every detail from the past 3 months. I added one final note in neat block letters. August 30th, final phase. I scanned all the evidence, organized it into folders. Forgery, legal documents. Manipulation, text evidence. False statements, employer contact. Draft letter, paternal forgery. Then I compiled everything into a single presentation file. Facts first, emotion later. People respect order more than outrage. When I finished, it was past midnight. The house was silent, the kind of silence that hums just before something breaks. I looked at Karen's sleeping outline through the half-open door. Her face looked peaceful, too peaceful for someone sitting on a pile of lies. I didn't feel anger anymore, just focus. In 31 years of marriage, she'd taught me how to keep calm during storms. That lesson was about to turn against her. Tomorrow, I'd call Emily and ask her to come home for the weekend. I'd tell her I had something important to show her, something about truth and who had been rewriting hers. And when the time came, I'd make sure Karen couldn't talk her way out of it. By Tuesday, everything was in motion. I called Emily around 8 o'clock while she was on her way to work. Her voice still carried that guarded politeness she'd worn since the divorce. Hey, sweetheart, I said. Your mother mentioned you might come down this weekend. I was thinking about it, yeah. Good. There's something I'd like to show you. Nothing bad, just something I think you deserve to see. A pause. Is this about David? In a way, I said. But mostly it's about truth. She hesitated, then sighed. All right, Dad. I'll drive down Friday night. That gave me 3 days. I spent them organizing everything like a courtroom exhibit. Dates in sequence, screenshots printed, duplicates stored on a flash drive in my jacket pocket. If Karen tried to destroy one set, another would survive. Thursday evening, I told her Emily was visiting. Her reaction was too quick. Really? That's wonderful. Then, a half-second later, the flicker of calculation crossed her face. I'll cook dinner. Something nice. That confirmed what I needed to know. She wanted control of the setting. Friday came bright and still. The air felt heavy, like the calm before a storm that hasn't yet decided when to strike. I worked late in the garage under the excuse of repairs, testing my own calm instead. At 1840, I heard Emily's car in the driveway. Karen went out first, smiling, arms open like a mother from a magazine spread. "Look at you, honey," she said, pulling her in. Emily smiled politely, but kept her eyes on me over Karen's shoulder. Dinner went smoothly at first. Too smoothly. Karen told stories about neighbors, church events, recipes. Emily nodded, adding small comments. But I could feel the distance between them, like two actors performing a play they'd rehearsed too long. After dessert, I cleared the table. "Let's sit in the den," I said. "I have something for you both." Karen frowned. "Can it wait? She just got here." "No," I said evenly. "It can't." In the den, I set down a thin folder on the coffee table. The room was dim except for one lamp, throwing long shadows across the carpet. Emily looked nervous. "Dad, what is this?" I met her eyes. "The real story of your divorce." Karen laughed softly. "Thomas, what are you doing?" "I'm finishing something you started," I said. She folded her arms, defiant but uncertain. Emily glanced between us, confused. I took out the forged restraining order and the fake letter she'd written in my name. "These came from your mother's files," I said. "And this," I pointed to the affidavit, "is proof they're false." Karen's face went pale. "You went through my things." "I went through the wreckage you left behind," I said quietly. "Now we're going to see what honesty looks like under light." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the clock in the hallway ticking through the silence like a slow, steady pulse. Emily looked from me to her mother. "What's he talking about, Mom?" Karen forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sweetheart, your father's confused. He found old drafts from when I was helping you get through that mess. He's twisting it." I opened the folder and slid the first page toward Emily, the forged restraining order. "Read the judge's name," I said. She did. "Harold M. Keating. He retired 6 years ago," I continued. "And the document number doesn't exist in the Cook County system. I had it verified by the clerk's office." Karen's hands tightened on the armrest. "That proves nothing. Anyone could." "Then let's try this." I handed Emily my phone. On it were screenshots of Karen's messages to David. Her eyes scanned them quickly, confusion turning into disbelief. "Mom, you threatened him?" Karen leaned forward. "No. Those are edited. Tom must have." "Enough." I opened another folder, pulling out the email chain between Karen and David's HR department. "You met with his employer, told them he was dangerous, and left them that same forged document. They suspended him the next day." Emily's voice broke. "You did this? You destroyed his career?" Karen's calm cracked for the first time. "He was wrong for you. He was controlling, manipulative." "He wasn't," Emily said. "You were." I let the silence stretch, giving the weight of those words space to land. Karen turned to me, desperate now. "You think this makes you noble? Spying on your own wife?" "I didn't spy," I said quietly. I confirmed. "There's a difference." Her eyes hardened. "You're trying to humiliate me in front of my daughter." "No," I said. "You did that yourself." I stood, gathering the folder. "Emily, I sent copies of this to my attorney. One will go to the police on Monday if anything happens to you or David. This ends here." Karen rose to her feet, trembling between anger and fear. "You can't just ruin me like this." "I'm not ruining you," I said. "You built this on lies. I'm just cutting the lights." She stared at me for a long second, then turned toward Emily, her voice shaking. "I did it for you." Emily didn't answer. She just stood, tears in her eyes, and walked out. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the house. Karen sank onto the couch, breathing hard. "You've destroyed everything." I looked down at her, steady calm. "No, I've restored it." Karen stayed on the couch after Emily left. The house felt hollow, the kind of quiet that follows truth when it finally hits its mark. I gathered the documents into a neat stack, slipped them into my briefcase, and set it beside the door. She looked up at me, eyes red but still calculating. "You really sent them, didn't you?" "Yes," I said. "One to my attorney, one to the police liaison, one to David's firm. The people you hurt deserve to know what really happened." Her voice cracked. "You could have talked to me first." "I tried," I said softly. "For months, I asked questions you dodged. You could have told me the truth any time." She covered her face. "I was trying to protect Emily. I thought if she believed he was dangerous, she'd walk away clean." "That's not protection," I said. "That's control dressed up as love." She didn't answer. The woman who'd once run our home with precision now looked small, swallowed by her own plan. By Monday morning, the fallout began. Frank called first. Tom, the firm's HR just confirmed your wife's fake document. They're forwarding it to their legal team. That afternoon, my attorney called. Detectives want to question Karen. They've got enough for forgery and defamation. You did the right thing documenting everything. Word spread fast in a town our size. Karen stopped going to church. Neighbors pretended not to stare when she picked up the mail. By the end of the week, her charity board asked her to step down temporarily. Through it all, I stayed quiet. Justice doesn't need applause, it just needs air. Emily called the following Friday. Dad, I talked to David. Her voice was fragile but steady. He said he doesn't hate me. He just wants to move on. That's good, I said. So should you. I don't know how, she whispered. One step, I told her. The truth's heavy, but it frees you once you stop fighting it. A long pause. Thank you for showing me, Dad. When we hung up, I sat in the backyard. The air had changed. The first cool edge of September rolling in, the sun softer now. Karen's car wasn't in the driveway anymore. She'd gone to stay with her sister in Peoria while her lawyer sorted things out. I didn't celebrate. There's nothing joyful about dismantling 31 years of shared life. But there was peace, the quiet kind that comes when lies finally stop echoing. People say betrayal breaks you. It doesn't. It clarifies you. It teaches you who you are when the mask drops, when truth stands alone without applause or comfort. As the wind rustled through the dry grass, I thought of Emily's small smile when she'd thanked me. That was enough. Respect doesn't beg to stay. Trust breaks quietly before it shatters. And sometimes, the only way to save what's left of a family is to let the truth burn through everything that isn't real. If you like this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts below. Haven't subscribed yet? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next one. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.